established Deaf Unity based on my own experience of leaving school. When I finished school, I wasn't sure about what to do, whether to go to work, go to college, or apply to university. It was made worse by the lack of information and advice. I eventually decided to go to university. When I applied, though, the process was so difficult, writing the application, going through the interviews, but I did finally win my place. Then the next challenge of trying to sort out my support. Note takers, interpreters, a budget, working out my class schedules. It felt like a real battle. The information out there just wasn't really available. Who could I go to for support? It was so hard. I think the whole experience was just unfortunate. So I set up Deaf Unity to support and empower deaf students, give them the information that they need. I wanted to make sure that they had the information that was out there, given to their hands, and if it wasn't available, to make it, so that we could put it into their hands and deaf students with their families could make their own decisions. They could do their own research. And that's what we've been doing at Deaf Unity. We've run information days for our deaf learners. We've had deaf learner information conferences where we provided information and support to any who are interested in going to university. And we've been doing that nationally, bringing people together, students, teachers, professionals, to really open a dialogue about what barriers are faced in deaf education and how we can provide meaningful solutions. We've also had careers days for deaf graduates who are looking for work but aren't sure about what to do or where to get information. We've brought together employers and advisors to give them the information that they need. So this Deaf Futures series is designed as a series of presentations to give information, resources and guidance. This feature is focused solely on UCAS, the University College Application System. Some of you might be getting ready to make your decisions as to whether you wanted to apply to university or not. And once you've made that decision, you're going to have to approach the personal statement. Maybe you're not sure about what to write. Maybe you're not sure about what to do, what the rules are, or what the universities expect. Well, this feature is here to support you. We are excited to have Heather, Judd from West Kent College with us. To share her top tips to help you create a competitive personal statement that will impress the universities when they receive them. We are also offering a clinic where we give feedback on your statements to polish up your drafts and make the right impact on admission staff.
Hello, I'm Heather and I work as a careers coordinator for West Kent College in Tonbridge and for Hadlow College. These are both further education colleges, so we have a range of students from age 16 plus, and Hadlow College has the addition that it's a land-based specialist college. Part of our remit within careers is to support students with all their progression options, and one of those options is applying to university, which is where my knowledge comes in, and hopefully I can share some of that with you today. So the aim of this session is to help you write the optimum personal statement. So we're going to be talking about hints and tips of what you need to include in your personal statement, and hopefully we'll point out some things that will be relevant for the particular subject you're applying for. And there's also some nitty-gritty in there too, some of the statement writing rules and the technical details that you have to adhere to when you're applying through UCAS. So first of all, what is UCAS? UCAS is the University and Colleges Application System. To apply for a full-time degree course or a higher education programme anywhere in the UK, you need to apply through UCAS, and their website is up there on the screen for you. Your personal statement is just one section of the UCAS application form. There are many others which will include your personal details and your education. Your personal statement is your written opportunity to tell the university all about you and your suitability, both for the course that you're applying for and for the institution that you're applying to. Many people find the personal statement quite an overwhelming thing to approach, which is why we're going to run through some of what should be in your statement in this session to try and make it easier for you to understand what you need to be writing about. So things you need to remember: each university will read the same personal statement. You can only apply, or you can apply to up to 5 universities, and each of those universities will be reading the same statement. Likewise, you might choose to only apply to 1 or 2 universities, but apply to more than one course at that university. You'll still be applying with the same personal statement. So make sure you do your research. Know beforehand what course you're applying for and make sure it's the right course for you. Different universities will publish their own details of what they will expect to see in your personal statement. So that might be in their prospectus, it might be in their website. So have a look, and again, make sure you know what you're applying for so that you can show you've got those skills. The last thing there, make a list or a mind map of everything you want to include. It depends how you work. I'm a list person, so I would be writing a list. But if you're a mind map person, if that works better for you, just write down everything you think you want to include. What I would say with the personal statement is it's always better to overwrite and get somebody to help you cut it down to size than trying to write the minimum. So think of everything that you might be relevant and then come back to it and take out the things that aren't as important at a later date. So the things you need to include: you need to think about your enthusiasm and your interest for the subject you're applying for. How can you demonstrate that you are genuinely interested in what you're about to apply for? When you study a degree, you're giving 3 years to that study. It's an investment in your time, and you need to make sure that you're investing it in the right area. You need to talk about your previous education and how this relates to the degree that you're applying for. Now, you don't need to list every single qualification you've done in your personal statement. That will be in your education section somewhere else on your application form. But you do need to pick out particular units or modules, something that's especially relevant to what you're applying for, that shows that you've got the interest in the academic ability to be successful in studying it further. Think about transferable skills as well, skills that you might have developed outside of school or college that are relevant to what you're applying for. If you're applying for a course, for example, where you know that you need to have good communication skills, think of other ways that you can demonstrate that you've got those. And then at the bottom there, any activities or hobbies that you do that are relevant to the degree that you're applying for or to the university that you're applying to. Think about your activities and hobbies again in terms of transferable skills. If you are applying for a creative course, I would expect to be reading about what you've done outside of your college to build your creative skills, whether that's exhibitions you've been to, shows you've seen. It's really tricky at the moment, obviously, with lockdown, for us to have got out and about and seen things in the way that we may have done a couple of years ago. So any kind of online activities that you've done, TED Talks you've responded to, or I know Google Arts, you can visit museums through the websites and things as well. So anything like that you've done, just another way of showing that you've managed to keep up with your activity or hobby during lockdown is a really good thing. Right, your personal statement should follow a standard essay format. That means it has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an end. The beginning is your introduction. It's really tricky, but try to avoid cliches such as ever since I was young or ever since I was little. Your introduction needs to quickly demonstrate your enthusiasm for your subject. I work with a lot of students that sit in front of a blank screen or a blank piece of paper, not knowing how to start. Don't get so hung up on your introduction that you can't write the rest of your statement. Remember earlier we said to write a list or do a mind map. Refer to your list, write your paragraphs about the things on that list, and then come back to your introduction rather than letting it paralyze you through fear of writing the wrong thing. The middle should be your bulk of your statement, and that's your opportunity to demonstrate the skills you have that are necessary to be successful on your chosen degree. If you were writing a personal statement for a job, you would normally be given a job description and a person specification. And they would tell you the kind of skills and qualities that you need to have in order to be successful in that job. When you apply to university, they don't necessarily give you that list. So you need to think for yourself, what are the skills I need to be successful? How can I evidence that I've got those skills? You then need to structure it in an order that's most relevant. And as a rule of thumb, the way of knowing what's most relevant is probably your most recent experience is the thing they need to know about first, and then work back from that. They don't necessarily want to know what you did in year 9. You need to keep it relevant, up to date, and current to what you're doing now. Finally, the end is your conclusion. It summarizes your enthusiasm for your subject, your suitability for university life, and for some of you, you will know already that you are doing a particular degree with a particular vocation or career in mind. If you can put in your conclusion how you're hoping this degree will fit in with your career plans, that's even better. You've got to be aware of your grammar, spelling, and punctuation. Be cautious of spell check and the thesaurus. A couple of little pet niggles of mine are Americanizations. So watch out for words like organize or realize that should have an S in them and not a Z. Be careful of swallowing the thesaurus, trying to sound cleverer than you think you are, because quite often you will pick the wrong word and it won't actually mean the same in the context of what you're writing it. Remember, your personal statement, the key in the word there is personal. You have to write in the language that you would talk in. It's got to be your statement, not how you think they want you to sound. And again, be aware of punctuation. I tend to say, as a general rule, if you're writing a statement, or a sentence rather, that you think needs an exclamation mark, you are probably writing the wrong sentence. Stay away from humour. It's a formal document and you don't know the sense of humour of the person reading it, so don't try to be funny. And then remember, if you can, to ask for feedback and give yourself time to redraft. There are lots of people that will be able to help you with this. You've just got to ask. There are rules around your personal statement in terms of how much you can write. So again, when you're panicking about how to start and never being able to do it, UCAS set stipulations. You have to fit your personal statement within a certain size box. The maximum length is 47 lines or 4,000 characters. And those characters include all spaces and punctuation. Probably don't realise when I say 4,000 characters that actually when that's typed up, it's only about a side of A4. It's not that long at all. So, and if you type over, then it won't save. UCAS won't let you save a document that's too long. It will tell you that it's too long to be saved. I always suggest that you write it in another program, such as Word, and then when you're happy with it, you copy and paste it into your UCAS form. What you can't do is when you're writing in Word is change the font size to something really tiny to try and fit in more lines. UCAS has a standard font size. It's not an opportunity to be creative with your design. So when you do copy and paste it over, just check that your last line is the last line as you thought it was supposed to be, and make sure that you haven't been cut off at the end. The other thing that sometimes happens is students get into such a panic about how to write their personal statement. They start looking on the internet for examples of good personal statements. I would always caution against this. The minute you read somebody else's statement, you've got a little seed of that in your head. Don't be tempted to copy from friends or the internet. UCAS does use plagiarism software, and your application could be rejected if they have thought that you've copied. And then lastly, some tips to avoid the stress. Do not struggle alone with your statement. Your school or college or careers advisors will be able to help you. Start drafting early and know when your deadlines are. And then remember, each university will have hints and tips on their websites or prospectuses, and there is also lots of information on the UCAS website itself. And all that's left is for me to wish you good luck with your application. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sophie and I am Business Development Manager for Sign Solutions. We are a British Sign Language interpreting agency based in Alvechurch in Birmingham, and today I am here to discuss with you how to provide inclusive education for your deaf students. Providing inclusive education for deaf and hard of hearing people has always been a problem. And with many teachers unable to cater to students with disability and lack of specialised staff available, mainstream education settings continue to unknowingly exclude deaf students. As the coronavirus pandemic continues, college and universities have been offered and forced to shift to online learning for thousands of students. The adjustment in learning style has posed even more challenges to profoundly deaf students who find it difficult to lip read on screens and understand seminars in which multiple people are speaking. To achieve learning for all education staff, we need to work collaboratively with the deaf community and provide them with equal access as a right and not as a goal. The Equality Act 2010 stipulates that education must be accessible to all students and are obligated to provide reasonable adjustments to ensure they can take advantage of their course in person and online. Online communication platforms can make it easy for universities and colleges to conduct virtual lectures and seminars, but they must opt for a suitable platform to enable user-friendliness for deaf students. Deaf students' quality, accessibility and security features vary widely across video platforms and needs to be considered when choosing a suitable video platform provider. When delivering lectures online, lecturers should consider their clothing, lighting, quality and security. Clothing should be kept plain and the camera should be kept at an angle so that students have a clear view of the lecturer's face. The background should be well lit for the lecturer, but more importantly for the interpreter, so the deaf student can clearly see the sign language and facial expressions of the BSL interpreter. Lastly, how can you become more inclusive? Before a student begins a course, find out your students' requirements. Provide them with as much information as possible on how they prefer to communicate. Not all students have the same needs and preferences, and they may have additional requirements for e-learning. For example, one deaf student may prefer to lip read, another deaf student may prefer to use British Sign Language and will require an interpreter. Become deaf aware. Deaf awareness training is a great way for education workers to learn about the deaf community, the challenges and the best practices for communicating. Optimise communication methods. Optimising your communication methods, you must have provisions in place for occasions when other students are expected to phone their lecturer. How will you allow a deaf student to do this? Will you be able to set up a video call for them to be able to discuss the points that they need to make, the problems that they may be having, the points of a lecture that they need to go over? How will you be ensuring that you create an inclusive environment for your deaf students? Address a student directly and not through their support worker or interpreter. Adapt your physical and visual learning environments is key to making education settings more accessible and inclusive for deaf students. For example, if lectures are being taken place in person, this could be changing the layout of the room, making additional space for an interpreter, ensuring that the deaf person is able to see who is speaking in the room. Always ensure good lighting and visual access to your face. And finally, take advantage of external support. Ask for the support if you need it. We can help unis and colleges improve access for deaf students in a multitude of ways. We are supporting students and their colleges and unis by providing a mix of in-person and online interpreting for their video platforms and allow access to all their classes. Becoming more deaf aware and adapting the learning environment and fostering an overall positive attitude to deafness and deaf issues, education organisations can work together to support deaf students effectively in their education and help them to achieve their ambitions. If you would like any further information on any of the services that we offer, please get in touch by emailing bookings@signsolutions.uk.com. Thank you.